gives you enough to be able to put back into the business to get it going how you need it to. Later, I ended up switching that amount into education and things like that. Now, when you do your pricing, okay, when we get ready to do the pricing, I'm going to be writing it down on here. So I'm going to share the screen up there so that way you guys can see it, because I'm a visual learner. I need to be able to see what we're talking about as we're doing it. So, and I'm going to do this as a real life scenario so that way you guys can actually have that breakdown of how it should go if you are starting out. This is what I used at the very beginning, and typically in the beginning stages when you start, I'm going to tell you guys where I was at when I started, because this is why the pricing was like that for me when I started. When I started, I had an infant and a toddler that I wasn't able to go to a suite and things like that, because I had one that got off the bus early, another one that got off the bus later, other one that had speech therapy right after. So I had a full schedule already onto doing this. So I wasn't able to go somewhere else and do the salon suite and actually dedicate that time and say that I'm going to be available from the time it opens to the time it ends, because their schedule, my kids' schedule, didn't work with that. So I did from home. Now, I also did from home with nothing really to start with. So I started with a regular chair, all of that stuff. So I had so many things that I wanted to upgrade to. So I had a list of everything I wanted it to be, and I didn't have those funds starting out. So this is what I did to be able to, one, have a reasonable cost for people when they were coming in, and get extra money each month to be able to put money into those upgrades to turn this into what I really wanted it to look like and be able to have later. So this, what I did, took me from a small space in my kitchen, living room, because they were connected, to having a house with a full suite set up out of my house. So that's what I did, a basement set up for a suite salon space, instead of getting out, because once again, I had kids on two different schedules where I couldn't go. I couldn't just go somewhere else. So if you can, by all means, do that, have fun, but you still want a realistic pricing amount. This is what you would do. So to start out, you had to figure out whatever your monthly expenses were going to be. It was easier for me to see monthly instead of my full year amount, because I really didn't know what to expect yearly. I knew what I needed per month. So let's say that we are going to need, let's say we need $5,000 a month. So once we know we need the 5,000, let me fix this, that ain't working. Okay, so we need $5,000 a month. So let's go ahead and turn that into a yearly amount, because it's easier to be able to turn things backwards after we know what the yearly amount is. So the yearly amount, we're going to take that 5,000 and we're going to, before we even do that, yeah, we could do it like this. So take that 5,000 and then times that by 12. We come out to 60,000 for the year. Now, like I told you, I had that long list of upgrades and things that I wanted to be able to do. It was a couple $1,000s and things that I needed, that I wanted to turn things into. So what I did was I added an amount each month, so that way I can upgrade slowly. And what I did was I added an extra $300 onto each month that I needed, so that way I can have that to put towards the upgrades and things that I needed to be able to invest back into the business to make it look better, because at that time that was the most important part to me, was the look better. And once I did that, I did $300 and times that by 12 months. That gave me $3,600. So starting off, I was at $63,600 per year that I needed to be making. Okay, so now since we bumped that up to a yearly amount, it is going to give us a little bit more than what we were actually thinking in the beginning of having the 5,000 a month. So you will have the extra left over, and I'm gonna show you. So now let's take that 63,600 and divide that by your 52 weeks. There's 52 weeks in a year. We're not going to go by monthly, because the weeks in the month kind of fluctuate, but the entire year is going to be 52. So let's divide that by 52. So that gives us $1,223. All right, so that's what we need to make per week. Now, after we figured out our weekly amount, we want to figure out how many days a week we're going to actually work. So let's say we're going to do 5 days a week. At the time I was doing 5 days, and I think it was Monday and Wednesday. I did a split schedule. But if you guys want to do it back to back, I later went to that. It's easier. I liked it, but another story. So take your 5 days, and that's $1,223 divided by 5, because we're doing 5 days for the week. That gives us $245 a day. So now we know our daily rate. So after we figured out our daily rate, we want to figure out what our hourly rate would be. Now, how many hours a day do you want to actually work? What time do you really have available each day to work? The more time and hours you do have available, you can potentially make more money. But at your minimum of what you need to work per day, what are you going to do? So let's say we did 6 hours. We'll do that. Let's do 6 hours. So 245 divided by 6. That gives us $40 an hour. Well, we'll round it up. So we'll say 41 because it's 40.8. So we'll say $41 an hour. So after we now have our $41, we're going to divide that by 60, because there's 60 minutes in 1 hour, because we need to know what our minute rate is for the styles that are maybe an hour and 15 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes, things like that. So that way you can have a more accurate amount when you do it. So take the $41 and divide that by 60. That's going to give us 68 cents. Now we know what our weekly, our daily, our hourly, and what our minute rate should be. This is going to help you for when you are ready to start putting out your price list. So say for instance, we are going to do jumbo knot list, and that jumbo knot list is an hour and 15 minutes. So let's say we already know the hour is $41, and then we need 15 minutes. So we're going to times that 68 cents by 15. That gives us $10.20. So now we're at $51.20 for that style. This is before your product cost. So let's give an example, but I'm only going to do a couple products. Let's say that we used the mini jar of the Shine and Jam. That Shine and Jam, possibly $4 or $5 in your area, so we'll say $5. So let's say the mini jar of jam was $5. And let's say we're going to buy a pack of hair with a couple bundles in it. So let's say that was about $20 for the multiple pack in there. And we used that for the hair. And then let's think of something that we get a couple uses in. So say for instance that we were going to use edge control. And say we were able to use that $10 edge control, but we can do 20 people with that one $10 edge control. So we're going to take that $10 edge control and we're going to divide it by 20, because that gives us the cost per head out of that jar. So now let's say that is 50 cents for the edge control. So now we're looking at our price of adding all of those together. We got $51.20 starting off, plus the $5 for the jam, plus the $20 for the hair, plus the 50 cents for the edge control. So now we're at $76.70 for that hairstyle. Okay, so this amount, which would be just being able to break even on the amount that you absolutely needed per month. This is not anything particularly like, as far as if you were going for a premium brand, this is not the price list you want to use. This is something that you want to use at the very beginning when you're getting started. So here we are at the 76. Now let's go ahead and talk about from earlier when we said we wanted to do our upgrades. So weekly, we had the $1,223 per week. So let's say for the month, that ended up getting us, let's say we ended up doing, let's say 4.5, so 4.5 we say for the month. We made $5,503 for that month. Now we're gonna take out, because remember we talked about we wanted the 300 for the upgrades. So out of that 5,000, we're gonna take that 300 out of there and go put that towards the upgrades that we needed. So say you want to go get that new chair, go ahead and go get that new chair. So now you're sitting there with where we already have a little extra too. So remember at the very beginning we said we needed 5,000 a month, but we turned it into a yearly amount. So with that yearly amount, when you turn it into that yearly amount, it gives you a little bit extra, because we didn't do like 4.5 weeks. We did 52 weeks to actually get the entire year. So you're gonna come up with a little bit more money. So that's why now we have $5,503. So out of that, you already knew 300 was going towards the upgrades that you had. The 200 you could just put up. You could also do your 5,000 is what you already know that you needed for the month. So that is taken up. I needed to cover all of my expenses to get started. So that way I can actually start putting in that later. Sometimes when people think into doing profits and things like that, they go for a higher amount where at the time their skill level is not there yet, and people do not want to pay those prices. So if you are starting at the very beginning and your skill level is not there yet, you shouldn't be going anything lower than what we just discussed. And even that jam hair and edge control, you may need more items for that hairstyle that you're going to be doing. So this price may end up being more. Always calculate in what your product cost is going to be, because if you didn't, that income for that, the extra money for the jam hair and edge control, that would have been $25.50 taken out of that $51 that you had just made. So you wouldn't have had pretty much anything out of that. So you want to make sure that you're actually getting the money for the time that you had worked for that, and on top of that for your product cost. And then with you doing this small portion on whatever you're going to be doing for your upgrades and things like that, it's a small amount up front where it still gives you enough to be able to put back into the business to get it going how you need it to. Later, I ended up switching that amount into education and things like that. You want to make sure that you are doing your yearly increases. You want to also think about how you're going to go about doing your yearly increases. Are you going to just, everybody has to do that new cost, or are you going to only do it for your new customers? You want to think about those things ahead of time. So that's pretty much it for getting you started with pricing. There is a whole lot more to this that you guys can be doing, but this is at the very basic amount to get you guys up and going. If you are going into a suite and things like that, make sure that you are calculating what your expenses are per month based on that suite, not based on what you're currently doing. So that way when you get into the suite, you're covered. Then it also helps you get the money put up for the suite. Just think about your goals. Actually pay attention to what you're doing, so that way you can be intentional while you're working through this, and you're not just working and the money is being blown and you have no clue what to do next or where the money is going. Keep good books. It's very important to know where your money is going. That's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, any comments that you have, leave them below. I hope this video was very helpful. If it was, do go ahead and like it, and also subscribe to the channel because I have much more coming. And guys, stay tuned. The next one, I was behind this week. I didn't do it on Tuesday, I'm doing it on Thursday. So pay attention inside of the community area tab. I do put in there on if there's going to be any changes to the schedule on my next post. So that's pretty much it. I will see you guys in the next one.